Hello, my name is Karen Noe, and I'm a psychic medium and author of several books. I'm based in New Jersey. I had a spiritual experience about 25 years ago that greatly enhanced my psychic abilities. And also, I am the medium for Dr. Wayne Dyer's family after he made his transition.
Hello, my name is Jacob Cooper. I'm a psychotherapist in the mental health field and an author of 2 books. I'm also a near-death experiencer, which profoundly changed my life, and I live and reside in New York.
What is the soul?
The soul is the essence of who you are, and who you are is a divine spark. You are bigger than your body, your mind, your emotions, and underneath all of that is the essence of who you are, a divine light, a divine being, having a human experience. A soul is who you are that transcends this body, this life, and your eternal essence of your oneness with God.
The soul is the essence of who we really are. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're eternal, divine beings of love and light. And we just have to remember who we are.
Is a soul born? Does a soul die?
The soul is eternal. It never truly dies. It goes beyond this body, beyond this time. And so we are all, in our own way, individual offshoots of the eternal consciousness that we come from. So there's no point of entry and no end point. It goes beyond linear time on our eternal journey.
The soul is not created and it never dies, it's eternal. After we leave the physical body, we remember who we are. We feel our connection to everyone and everything. We feel our connection to God because the physical body isn't separating us from God.
What's the difference between a young soul and an old soul?
The difference between a younger soul and an older soul can be the difference, in many ways, the difference of a younger person and an older person. When you're older, you tend to be more in the afternoon of life, as Carl Jung would say. You're more focused on the sense of being rather than doing. It's less about all the things that you've been told and all the achievements that you needed to follow in order to be something, and you're just more in presence. Whereas when you're a younger soul, it's more about climbing that corporate ladder, getting that job, following all the transcripts for a healthy life. And once you recognize that all those things don't really work, there's an evolution. But I think you could find it within eye radiance. If you look at someone, old or young, you could look at the radiance of their eyes, and they say this: the eyes are the windows of the soul. And when there's more depths of eye radiance, there's normally an older soul there. But older souls tend to gravitate towards more empathy, compassion, wisdom, and things that you can take with you when you leave here. Whereas younger soul may be focused on me and trying to really use everything they can to manipulate their success. And they're focused on the temporary satisfactions of the ego.
In reality, there's no difference between an older soul and a younger soul because our soul is eternal. I think what most people mean when they say that is an older soul is more focused on the spiritual aspect of who they are, and a younger soul is more focused on the outside of themselves, the physical world.
What is the soul's relation to Source/God?
God is within everyone and everything. And the funny thing is, most people have been looking for God their whole lives, and they've been seeing through God's eyes the whole time.
In order to understand the relationship of the soul to God, I think it's important to understand who and what God is. To me, in my understanding, from having a near-death experience, God is unconditional, eternal love. And so all parts of the soul that are of love are of beauty, and all parts of life that have this same DNA are of God. So when you are connected to beauty, love, warmth, you are connected to God. But even in moments when you're feeling separate from that, while you may feel separate, individuated from God, God is still always with you, for you are eternally, infinitely connected to God. So while you may think that you're separate or try to walk away, God is in the essence of all of our hearts and the depths of our beings. No matter where we go, we're eternally connected from the soul to its infinite source.
Mind, body, or soul? Which is the real us?
We're everything. We're mind, body, and soul. The spiritual part of who we are is the real part of us. But when we're here in the physical plane, we're all of it. I do alternative healing, and I have seen over and over again that true healing occurs when everything is healed: the mind, the body, and the spirit. It's never just one or the other. So you have to heal every single one of those aspects of who you really are.
Body, mind, and soul. Who are you really? Are you just the body, just the mind, or just the soul? I have a little insight to this. As a young child, I had a near death experience in which I completely suffocated. All parts of my body shut down. So, to answer this question, from my own evidential experience, I would say that we are spiritual beings using the body as a tool of our human experience. But beyond the body, we continue. But our experiences are enhanced when we're connected to all three: body, mind, and spirit. So, not just connecting to spirit as we can't connect to this earth plane. We came here for this physical experience. We could be both a soul and a body. We don't have to be one or the other. But when we leave this world, you could bury a body, but you can never bury a soul. The soul will go on past the body when we die.
Are human incarnations voluntarily chosen?
We choose to come back into the physical body. We choose maybe if we need to learn forgiveness, we come into a life in which we will learn forgiveness or compassion and so forth. And sometimes we come back to the physical plane. And by the way, it's not just on the planet Earth, with the purpose of making a difference in the world.
For many, my answer to this may seem a bit absurd. As many would say, why would I come here? Why would I choose to come here when life is so difficult? When you're on the other side, there's a much greater way to see this world. Living on this earth, you're only on the first or second floor from our perception. But when you're on the other side, you're able to see things through a much clearer perspective. So spirit does not mislead you. And when you feel and your team feels that it's right for you to come here, you will be here. So God and spirit is not a boot camp instructor, nor is it an abuser. You wouldn't do anything that your soul does not want to do. So it's all in accordance with what is right for you and what you want to do from the big picture of things.
What's the purpose of life on the physical plane?
Life on the physical plane is to remember who we are, to spread the love that we are within ourselves, and to spread it on to everyone else.
The purpose of life is an opportunity for the soul. While in many moments it could feel like quite a burden, from a broader perspective, being here in this life is a unique, privileged opportunity for each soul to remember who they really are, what they're forever connected to, and the ability to become a grander expression of who you really are within each lifetime, furthermore connected to your infinite divine source and less fragmented and separated individually and collectively.
Why would a soul choose to leave heaven?
Well, in reality, we never leave heaven. Heaven is not a place or a condition. Heaven is a state of complete awareness of our true oneness.
A soul never really leaves heaven, as heaven is the ultimate dwelling place of each soul. But throughout the journey of the human experiences, many groups and peoples and individuals have forgotten this understanding. And so each soul is a pure light. And our goals here are really to bring forward that piece of heaven onto earth to make this world a better place. And so heaven is not separated from earth, but rather we're able to have heaven on earth, and the light is able to go into the deepest and darkest of places and illuminate it and shine it with our own beautiful spark within.
Many people experience challenges while living in a body. Does the soul seek such challenges, and if so, why?
Anything that comes into our lives is the soul is seeking. We create, sometimes not consciously, but we create subconsciously. And many times, challenges help us to grow and evolve. I've seen many times somebody has a physical ailment, and now their family's paying more attention to them, or they're leaving a job that they hated. So these things are created always from our soul. No coincidence.
Everything in this life is based on how we frame it. What one can see as a challenge, another could see an opportunity. And so when we think of challenges, I could get real tangible and discuss an analogy. If I want changes to my body, I'm not going to go to a gym with free weights and just sit there eating Doritos all day and expect changes to myself. While that can be a pleasant experience, there's no challenge or elasticity for my physical body and my mind and my spirit. The same thing here with the earth plane. We're giving set of challenges to really allow the soul to be a grander expression of itself, to evolve, and to really become more of who we really are by recognizing what we're not. And it's by going through those challenges, not running away from those challenges, that we come out at the other side with a much different perspective and orientation and resilience and stamina of the soul.
Do souls have more than one incarnation, either on Earth or elsewhere?
Souls certainly have evidence of reincarnation. If you look at the University of Virginia case studies, you will find hundreds and thousands of evidential cases of reincarnation. But as a past life regression therapist, I have seen hundreds of clients come into my office and have seen profound evidential cases of reincarnation. And so, yes, the soul has journeys beyond just this lifetime. So, yes, reincarnation is real. And yes, there are different forms of life beyond just this earth. But it's by going through this planet, finding mastery of this planet, that the soul is able to vibrate and go towards different forms of life beyond this earth.
Souls absolutely have the ability to come back, and we do, more than one time on the physical plane, whether it be on Earth or other dimensions. And let's take it a little step further. Look up in the sky and you see how many planets there are in galaxies. Why would we keep coming back to planet Earth? All right, it's life here is life as we know it, but there's life on other planets which we could grow and evolve as well.
Does the soul plan its incarnations ahead of time?
Our soul plans its incarnations, and before we get here, we choose where we're going to live, the people we're going to intermingle with, our soul's purpose, whether it be making a difference in the world or just trying to learn compassion. But we choose that before we come to the physical plane.
A soul most certainly prepares its lifetime here. And the blueprint for the soul relates to major themes. So that doesn't mean that it's related to when you're going to go to Citgo gas station or get something like that on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. These are smaller things, but it does relate to major themes. And those themes include family, career, relationships, health, and all these are experiences of the soul. Many times children will come up to their own parents and remember that they actually chose their parents and their families. And you can read up certainly on reincarnation studies. I certainly, in my NDE, understood that I didn't come from my parents, but rather I chose my parents. So the family that we're in is all selected by the soul as the soul gravitates to that particular family, culture, civilization, and beyond. So the major themes of our life are blueprints that the soul selects.
Do we have soul groups that we incarnate with across different lifetimes?
When we think of this life, we have to understand that we don't just get here in this body. We are eternal souls with many different roles and lifetimes. And so when we come into our own lives, we have people in our lives that may have once been a child or once have been a parent, and now those roles are reversed. And this was something that I experienced in my near death experience with my own family, that I wasn't who I thought I was, but I was just experiencing my role as a child. And so the parents that I had, while they were my parents in this lifetime, they were other different roles in other lifetimes. And so we do play those out. Those do balance things out. And it does make sense when we may have a kid who may be a little bit more defiant or pushing back, not always the case, but at times maybe they're getting used to their role as once of a parent and now as a child. But it all helps to balance out the different family dynamics of the soul family.
So we come back in soul groups with family, friends, acquaintances from other lives, and we take on different aspects. Where sometimes we're a parent, sometimes we're a child, and so forth. But we help each other to grow and evolve and learn, and most of all, to remember who we are.
Do spirit guides or angels assist us?
All of us have angels and spirit guides that are guiding us and protecting us throughout our lives. The best part is that we can all connect to our spirit guides and our angels. We just have to resonate more on par with the energy of who they are, which is only love and peace. And in reality, we are only love and peace as well. We could ask them to give us signs to let us know that they're with us. We could ask them to come to us in a dream and to wake us up after the dream so that we remember it. And they often come to us as thoughts telepathically. So notice the thoughts that just pop in your head for no reason. That's their way of communicating with you. Um, so just remember who you are, who they are. We're all one, and that's how you'll be able to connect with them. Ask them for signs, ask them to come to you in a dream. Then it's important to be patient and wait. And these signs will come when you least expect it, I promise.
Each one of us has our own spirit guides or guardian angels. I found this out long ago in my near death experience when I was aware of my own two spiritual guides. And that taught me the illusion that we are separate or alone on this journey. We have so much support in the angelic realm, and every person here on this planet has spirit guides. They're here on our journey to help us. We just have to be open and listening. And many times they will push us to do things that may be beyond our comfort zone, but there's an intelligence that they have and a vision that they have that goes beyond our sometimes limited sight and vision. So we have to just trust in our guides, connect to them, and the quieter we become, the more that we could feel and hear our own spiritual guides around us.
We're asking the angels and spirit guides to fix our lives when it's really up to us to determine what we need to do to grow and evolve. We have to remember who we really are. We could tap into the angels, we could tap into higher wisdom, but in reality, it's all within us what we need to do. It's always been there.
What is death?
Death in the English language simply means a complete stoppage or ending. But in this context, we're speaking of death in terms of our body's death, in terms of the death that we feel of our own lives. I've had a near death experience and have been able to look at death right in its eyes. And I can tell you that from a human perspective, death is real. But from a spiritual perspective, there is no death. The soul will go on far beyond this body, ultimately return to our eternal state. And so there is no death from a spiritual perspective or from the soul's perspective, but rather just from the physicals.
What most people consider death is death of the physical body. And yes, there is death of the physical body. I call it the wrapping paper. But there's no death of the spiritual essence of who we are, the soul. I call that the gift inside. And that's who we really are. So there's no death of who we really are.
After death, do souls return to visit loved ones still on Earth?
Souls absolutely visit their loved ones to let them know they're around. They give them signs, they come to them in dreams, they come to them and speak to them telepathically just to let them know that they're around. It brings them, the living loved ones, so much peace to understand that the essence of their loved ones never died and is still around them, guiding and protecting them. Most people expect their deceased loved ones to come to them as an apparition or as an audible voice. But in reality, their deceased loved one is spiritual. So they don't have a voice, they don't have a physical appearance, but they probably will be speaking to their living loved ones telepathically and in dreams and giving them signs and so forth. So pay attention to the signs that you're receiving. The things that normally don't happen, I call them without a doubt signs. Things that normally don't happen, that happen.
What is the veil of forgetting and why do we need it?
I think it's important that we forget our past lives because it would be too overwhelming with all this information. Without the veil, there would be no purpose of us coming here at planet Earth. We're here to remember who we are. If we had all the past lives memories within us, we'd be constantly thinking about all of that rather than focusing on the here now, remembering who we really are.
The veil of forgetting has to do with amnesia, forgetfulness of who we are, what we're connected to. Some people remember more so than others. For instance, children, when they come from the other side, have a lot more clarity of maybe past lives or angels or spirit communication around them. But others may be blocked. But if we were meant to remember everything at all times, we would not have the ability to really grow to remember and to have a world where there's polarities in it. When you forget something, you could also remember, just as when there's dark, there is light. The question is about choosing what do you want to gravitate to? Do you want to gravitate to a life that moves towards heaven on earth, or do you want to continue to regurgitate the same patterns of behavior that sees lives outside of ourselves and puts the emphasis on others having the information instead of us having the solutions and answers towards life's problems?
Discuss the role of free will in a given incarnation.
In order to really understand free will, we must understand destiny. That is, that destiny is really guided before we get here by our guides, by our loved ones, by people who surround us. And so, for us, there is a way for our free will to be aligned with destiny. If our world is ruling our mind, or the events of the world are really overruling our mind, we're not truly connected towards our deeper essence, our source. And so when we're connected towards the soul, we're a lot more connected towards our own free will, which is able to be in alignment with the destiny set out before we get here. Some would call that the groove of the soul, or just in the flow. So the key is actually for the two not to be on polar opposites, but to understand when you're really connected to your soul, you're able to really have competency of your free will, that it serves your greatest and highest good. And that aligns itself with the destiny set out before you got here by the higher intelligence of your guides, your loved ones, and higher source.
We all have free will to do what we need to do. Sure, there's destiny involved, but what we could choose whether or not to listen to our guidance that's given from a higher self, and we have the choice what direction to take.
Is life on the physical plane an illusion?
No, but our beliefs of the physical world is an illusion. Our beliefs that we're separate from everyone and everything, our beliefs that we're separate from God is an illusion.
Life on this planet, on one hand, can be seen as an illusion. On the other hand, can be very real. As a therapist, I have a saying that two things could be true at the same time. While we override and go past this planet, our experiences here are very real. But on a literal basis, things of this planet are not as they appear. Even something physical, we see it as physical, but on a subatomic basis, it's next to nothing. So in order to really understand, is this planet illusion, we have to understand what the word illusion means, which really means it's not how it appears. And there is illusion that we are who we think we are. We think others are separate and outside of ourselves. We think that we are separate individuated particles from each other, when in reality, when you boil down the same subatomic parts of ourselves and our fellow inhabitants, we're all the same.
Do we create our own realities?
We absolutely create our own realities. We're vibrational beings. We're like a magnet, attracting like unto ourselves. Whatever we're thinking and feeling, most importantly, is what we're feeling, we're creating in our lives. So the important thing is to focus on what we want rather than what we don't want. Focus on solutions rather than problems themselves. Look around you and see what's happening in your life. You've created that.
In many senses, we certainly do have a role in creating the life that we live. They say what you put out becomes your reality. So there's a saying that thoughts becomes things. You really want to choose good ones. You get back normally good things. But beyond that, as a mental health therapist, I could really attest that it's not the events that determines what happens to us in our lives, but how we are able to interpret those events. In a sense, our reality is largely based on how we perceive it, how we conceptualize it. And that space, as they say, between the stimuli and our response is the ultimate reality. In other words, what happens to us and how we define it defines our reality. So, from a perspective of attraction, as well as the reality that we're living, we really have a tremendous role in deciding and determining our current trajectory.
Describe the life between lives.
Life between lives. So we're able to see the bigger perspective of who we really are. We feel our connection to everyone and everything because our body isn't separating us from everyone else. We join our deceased loved ones, join us, and I'm using the word deceased, but in reality, it's not a good word because nobody ever dies. But we're joined together. We feel that oneness in an instant.
Life between lives. Often, at least in here in the States, when someone passes away, we'll have a condolence term called rest in peace. Now, certainly when we cross over, there is peace that we feel, but on the other side, it is not passive. It is quite exciting, active, and it's just kind of like an after party of this life where our greatest highs and greatest of joys are there. But we really have to understand that the lives that we live and what we're passionate about over here carry over to there. So if you like certain things here, that's your bliss here. That will be your bliss over there too. So the bigger emphasis is not waiting on heaven to happen, holding our breath for us to let it go, but to understand that the lives that we live impact our eternity. Then, in a sense, and not only can we create heaven on earth, but we could really understand that these lives that we live on earth can impact our heaven.
Are we judged or punished for our mistakes in the afterlife?
When I at least think of God, I think of unconditional love that transcends anything that we probably experience in this life. So I think a lot of people's view of afterlife come from human constructs or religions, or there may be their own projected experiences here in this life. But on the other side, we're talking about a God that is loving and unconditional and eternal. And so that transcends almost anything that we know. So something that's eternally unconditional love doesn't have it in its fiber to judge. For we are all aspects of the divine, and how could the divine judge and condemn itself? So when we go to the other side, there is an expanded awareness that we may have been forgetful or limited while we are here, but there's certainly oneness and connectivity that goes beyond our limited understanding that may have transpired in this life.
We're not judged. God is an all loving, powerful entity. We're a part of God. What most people don't realize is not that we judge ourselves, but we see how we've affected other people through their eyes as if we are them. So in a little way that we are judging ourselves, but God's not judging us.
Is there such a thing as hell?
Is there such a thing as hell? Having a near-death experience, I only experienced heaven, and I understand that heaven is a dwelling place of every soul. So while in this life we may travel far from home and deviate from who we really are, that doesn't terminate the truth that we are a part of heaven, forever connected to it. And when we just die and we decide to cross over, all souls return home. And so hell is, to me, a separation of who you are and what you're infinitely connected to, and the torture and turmoil that may bring. When you're closer to heaven, you're closer to your essence. You're closer to love. You're closer to beauty, warmth, radiance, all the positive things. So hell is very much a construct here on this earth, but it's not uniformal truth with what happens when the soul crosses over.
There's no such thing as hell. We create our own hell here on earth. But after we leave the physical body, we feel our oneness with everyone and everything. We feel our oneness with God. And that is only heaven and joy and love and peace.
Describe the life review.
A life review is where we're able to see and feel how we've affected our living loved ones as if we are the living loved one, because guess what? We really are one with them. But as a psychic medium, I often hear regrets that they should have, could have, would have, and now it's too late. They should have forgiven their loved ones, but now it's too late. They should have asked forgiveness, and now it's too late. They should have told their loved ones how much they love them, and now it's too late. They should have treated themselves with the respect that they deserved, and now it's too late. But why do we have to wait until it's too late to go through this life review? Why don't we do it right here and now? See through the other person's eyes, how we're affecting them, forgive those who hurt you, ask forgiveness for those that you hurt, treat yourself with the respect that you deserve, tell people how much you love them, and in so doing, you'll be creating peace in your life and in the lives around you.
The purpose of the life review is more of a sense to see and understand the term. We have the term life review, which reviews events of their lives, but we understand that we are far more than our bodies. We are each other. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. We are forever connected. And so the life review is more of an alignment review. How aligned we are or not with that principle of understanding, and how separate were we or how connected were we. For when we are connected, we are able to understand and live and embody what we know, and what we do to another, we really do to ourselves. So life review is viewed from not only our perspective, but from the perspective of another. And when we are able to live in this alignment in this life, it's not that big of an adjustment when we do cross over, because we lived in harmony with the soul's essence, the soul's awareness, which is not in separation, but in connectivity.
What is karma?
Karma is a word that we hear it thrown around. John Lennon had a song called Instant Karma, but the origins of karma are found within the Buddhist as well as the Hindu tradition. And really what it means is kind of like a boomerang effect. What you put out, you get back. But on a deeper esoteric level, I think it really speaks to the interconnectivity that we all have, we all share. That what we do to another, we do to ourselves. The key is to develop what you want is good karma, where good things happening to you, versus bad. But ultimately, these messages that we get in life are repeated until those deeper lessons are embraced. And so it's about really learning and embracing those lessons that we have, so that we have really burned off a lot of the quote unquote bad karma to develop more good omens and good karma coming into our life.
What is karma? Well, we are all one. Whatever we do to ourselves or another affects everyone. Whatever we put out, we get back. If we put out love into the world, we'll receive love.
How do you define forgiveness?
Forgiveness is letting go of anger and resentment of something that's happened to us. Somebody else did something to us, or we did to ourselves. It's the highest form of love that we could give to ourselves or another. And I always use the saying, it's not the snake bite that kills us, it's the venom. Forgiveness purges the venom.
There are many layers towards defining forgiveness in one's life, depending on how deep you really want to look into it. From a psychological perspective, forgiveness allows you to move on in a sense that what that person does to you does not have to allow you to continue that same misery. So it is a step of emotional freedom and your ability to let go of not necessarily agreeing with what the person did, but the energy that that transaction left behind so that you could be able to operate and come from a place of more peace and objectivity versus continuing to regurgitate and to replicate the damage or pain that that person caused you. As they say, hurt people hurt people. Without awareness, a lot of people are hurting people without first dealing with clearing the wound. And so it doesn't mean that we necessarily agree with what the person did or that it was right from an action standpoint, but it does mean that we're able to see the real person behind the act and the essence of the suffering that that person may have felt, in a sense that it must have been a lot of pain that that person may have been projecting and experiencing, or a separation from their essence. And we forgive them by wishing them to come back towards their essence and to remember who they are, what they're connected to, and the beauty that they're forever intertwined with.
How do you define happiness?
To me, happiness is very much, a temporary emotional state. You think of emotion, you think of the root word energy and motion. It's temporary. So you could get that car and be happy, but let's say that car isn't working as well, all of a sudden that happiness dissipates. So you get that house and you're happy. It's a very temporary reaction. But then a couple of days later, the taxes come up, this comes up. So it could be very temporary. I think what people more so need to tap into is a state of joy, which is the freedom and the understanding of being unencumbered from what happens to you in this life by tapping into a greater force field within. And the soul's essence is in joy. And when you're tapping into your soul's essence, you're tapping into joy. And there's plenty of people who have plenty of reason to be happy and they're miserable. And there are people who have a lot of reasons to be miserable and they're quite happy. It all comes down to their ability to connect to their soul, which is a state of joy versus temporary happiness and temporary emotions, which run their temporal course.
Happiness is a state of contentment, enjoyment, and meaning in life. And we can experience happiness by going within ourselves and feeling who we really are, which is God within us, which is only love and only peace. And when we vibrate more on the energy of who we really are, is when we will experience true happiness and contentment.
Discuss the idea of oneness/unity and how we can apply it in our everyday lives.
We are all one, and that oneness includes everyone, everything, all of nature, angels, deceased loved ones, beings from other dimensions. We're all one. We don't feel that oneness when we're here in the physical body because it feels like I'm over here, my cat's over there, and you're over there, because the body is separating us from everyone and everything. But we are all one, and whatever we do to ourselves or another, it affects everyone. So that goes on to go on to say is that if we want to experience peace, we have to be peace. If we want to experience love, we have to be love. In order to experience forgiveness, we have to forgive, and so forth.
The idea of oneness is an ultimate reality. Years ago I had an out-of-body experience past my NDE when I was in my early 20s, and in this OBE, I experienced this one strand of energy that connected everyone and everything in the room. And these are things that I might have read in books, but until it became a conceptual reality, it was a whole different understanding. And so I think for people, oneness has different understandings. There could be the conceptualization of it or the undeniable knowing of it through direct experiences. And by going more within the soul, you recognize that the soul is not soul. It's not alone. It's connected to everyone and everything. And so it really has to do with living a connected life. And when we do that, this world becomes a smaller place and we're able to really let go a lot of the walls and just connect towards the one file of energy that brings us all together.
What does the belief in separation cost us?
When we believe that we're separate from everyone else and from God, we create events in our lives and in the world that will create even more separateness, such as the pandemic, which made us be separate from each person. You had to stay home or you had to wear a mask, be 6 feet apart from each person. But it's because the mass consciousness, most of the people in the mass consciousness believed that they were separate from everyone and everything. So we created that.
The belief in separation has cost us everything. Its costs wars, deaths, turmoil throughout the centuries. When we're able to understand lessons, they don't no longer to be repeated. On a macro level, a lot of these lessons have been playing out for thousands of years. Clearly, we need to wake up and understand that we are not separate from another. But beyond that, it's important to understand that word belief. Belief influences our behaviors. When we believe that we're connected, it would be self-harm to inflict pain on someone else that we see as outside of ourselves, but understanding that it only affects the one human body. Once we other people, via race, religion, or trying to settle scores, we recognize that we are only really doing harm towards ourselves. And it comes down to belief of separation or oneness that will determine our trajectory of behavior on a collective and as an individual. And the more that more people are connected to oneness consciousness, the more that we can no longer tolerate all of this muck and ill-dignified behaviors coming to the surface.
Where is heaven?
Heaven is right here and right now, but when most people visualize heaven to be after we leave the physical plane, what they're talking about is your feeling of oneness with everyone and everything, your connection with God and the angels and your deceased loved ones, and you feel it in an instant. Heaven is only peace and love. There's no negative. It's only light and love and peace.
Where is heaven? Well, you certainly can't put it on your GPS and try to find it as a specific place, as heaven is the infinite. It's not finite. When you think finite, you just think of one place, one thing. The infinite is all around us, and so it's not a set destination. It's everything that encompasses love, beauty, and euphoria. How I know this, I crossed over in my NDE, I experienced heaven, and I could say there's no limitations of how good you feel, how high you go in the euphoria and the unconditional love that you do experience. So it is an otherworldly experience, but we could really become closer to that by remembering it, embodying it, and creating it here, right now, in our very lifetimes.
Where is God?
God is everywhere. God is everything and everyone. God is source. And the funny thing is that most people have been looking for God their whole lives, while they've been seeing through the eyes of God that whole time.
There's a trajectory of disempowerment when it comes to God in our worldviews. A lot of people have been taught that God is in a holy person or holy thing, or someone has full monopolization of God within a book or within a belief system. While it can be that God is in those things, it might also be important to know that God is in you too, that we all have a spark of the infinity of divinity in all of us. And if we were able to remember that, we could save ourselves thousands of miles of trying to find God on mountains where gods can be, or in temples, gods could be there, and understanding in our own backyard that God lies there too. And as a young innocent boy, when I had my NDE, in a playground of all places, I could tell you that God is in our own backyard. And I had it in a playground to remind myself that we are just children in God's playground, here to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. But God is right here in all things love, in our own backyards. We are all forever connected to God. The key is to remember that and to learn how to see the world through those lenses rather than waiting for it or seeing it just externally, that it's all internally that we could see life through.
Many believe we're shifting to a higher consciousness on this planet. Do you agree? And if so, can you describe this shift?
We are raising to a higher level of consciousness. More people are going to remember and are remembering who we really are. There's been a significant amount of darkness underneath the Earth's surface that has been erupting to the surface the last several decades. Don't be fearful, because this is necessary for the total cleansing of the darkness with the light. While a lot of people may be choosing to side with the darkness, an even greater number of people will be joining forces with the light and remembering who they are and joining forces with the we consciousness. And I'm really looking forward to this because it is absolutely happening right now.
A lot of people right now are tuning in inside. If you look at stores, you'll see meditation magazines or people talking about psychics at water coolers and offices. And everywhere it seems to be that a lot of spirituality is becoming more a part of everyday life. In fact, even as a therapist, some of the stuff that I do as a therapist where we're talking about spirituality or even asking that is now even encouraged. So I think right now a lot of this shift has to do with the acceptance of how important spirituality is, the acknowledgement of it, and really destigmatizing spirituality and recognizing that it's not airy fairy, but it's in all of us. And so I think a lot of people are tapping more so into their real true self, which is of spirit. You're in that, you're in spirituality, and letting go of a lot of the things that didn't serve them anymore. Carl Jung once said, that there's two phases of life: the morning, which is of the ego, which is of the doing, and the afternoon, which is of the state of being. And so many people have taught that the more that we'll do, the more that we'll be, the more things we'll have, the more we'll be. And that has not served a lot of people for quite some time. And I think people are waking up to understand that it's not in the doing, but it's in the being, the sense of being while we are doing, the ultimate presence, living while we're living, that determines this shift in our life. So it's a shift in vantage point from a lot of things that we've been taught to being empowered, to tuning into a greater understanding of a different gear to tap into life that has more grace, ease, peace, and unity to it.
What's the most important thing you learned from your near death or other spiritually transformative experience?
For many years of my childhood and teenage years, my near death experience felt a lot more of a burden than a blessing. It was very hard to just fit in, as normal was the desired attribute of every kid. Every kid just wanted to be normal. But I had this abnormal childhood experience, which allowed me to see life through a different lens. And that was, we are not just these physical bodies. We're so much more than this. There's a greater intelligence around us, and this isn't all that there is. There's a greater life beyond this. But my life became very much paralyzed through this understanding, as people were living on the same planet, but I felt alienated from the person next to me. It wasn't until that I really understood that it wasn't so much what happened to me that defines my life, but rather what I make of it, whether I work through clients in the mental health field or do my public work, that really defined my life. That in a sense that events don't define me, but I defined it. And it wasn't until I defined my near-death experience that it had a deeper definition, from a curse to a blessing, from a burden to a blessing. And so for myself, the essence of this transformation of the near-death experience reminded me that we are eternal, we are infinite, we have so much more around us. But it is not looking for God that will find God, but is in the embodiment of God, which is found in unconditional love, service, joy, in leaving this world a more positive, uplifting place than when you walked in. That is a creative energy that we all have, the ability to transcend this life when we go and transcend some of the pain that we experience individually and collectively on this planet.
Wow. I had a spiritual experience that changed my life forever. I had an experience with the light, and in an instant, I felt my oneness with everyone and everything. Whereas before, I was self centered. Then I became more giving, compassionate, and so forth. People who knew me beforehand and they see me now, they say, I can't believe it's you. I became so much more psychic, and I just became my eating habits changed and everything. I couldn't eat animals anymore because I felt the pain of the animals and so forth. So my whole life changed, and so did the lives of those around me as well.
What are some practical applications of the idea that we're eternal spiritual beings?
From remembering our own eternity, we could really understand that the struggles, turbulence, turmoil that we have, while it may feel like an eternity, it is not. As the saying goes, this too shall pass, but we don't pass away, we continue. So the temporary struggles are finite, but we are infinite, and that has great value within the lives that we live here today.
This is hard to put into words, but it's a difference between believing in something and knowing something. I don't believe that I'm speaking right now. I know it without a doubt. I know that there's life after this physical body dies. I don't believe it. I know it without a doubt. And my wish is for everyone to realize that as well.
What's the secret to remembering who we really are?
The secret of remembering who we really are, we have to resonate more on par with the energy of who we really are, which is only love and peace. When we do kind things, when we're more compassionate and have empathy towards others, we'll begin to remember who we are. When we realize we're not separate from anyone else, that we are one with them, when we see through their eyes, that's the key. Also, what works with me is meditation. I meditate daily to experience that oneness, that perfection, that love and compassion.
The secret to remembering who we really are is for each person to remember that on a deeper level, we can never truly forget. We can have spiritual amnesia, but we don't have spiritual Alzheimer's. We're able to remember who we are at a deeper core. In order to really remember yourself, you have to be willing to lose that part of yourself or that box of yourself or box of reality to accept it. It's a vulnerability, but a rewarding one. And in order for really to grow, we have to look at things differently. No change, no change, as they say. And so now I think people have to apply that same principle to change their world, which is the ability to explore, to be curious, to be open to that there's other possibilities than what we've been taught or we hold on to. My personal secret is it is never-ending reality. And so how I see God today may shift and evolve tomorrow. Its essence remains the same, but the understanding each and every day of my life enhances. And I think the same for other people, just getting comfortable with being vulnerable and seeing things differently.
What does our soul want us to know?
The soul wants us to remember who we are, that we're one with everyone and everything. We're one with God, angels, deceased loved ones, and so forth. The soul wants us to know that heaven is within us. It's not a place or a destination. The soul wants us to know that we could create amazing miracles in our lives if we remember who we are. The only difference between a miracle worker and one who's not is that the miracle worker knows who they are.
The soul wants us to apply what we really know. For in the core nature of who we are is unlimited divine intelligence. But through applying it, we become it. We become uniform with it. By walking with it in this physical journey, we become congruent with what we know and who we are. And so the soul really wants congruency with a lot of this awareness and how we live our lives and our behaviors, our own beliefs constantly elevating and evolving to have better behaviors, improved behaviors. And so, in essence, the recollection of this, but also in the ability of to let go, to be able to allow ourselves to let go of who we thought we were and are, to open ourselves up to a more expansive relationship to ourselves and reality, letting go of the small me and opening up ourselves to the big we.
Is there a positive message or message of hope you'd like to leave us with?
The message is simply that you are infinitely more loved than you can imagine, but beyond that, you are infinite love. And when we're able to remember that, we'll have a profound impact on the very lives that we live. But beyond that is the illusion of loneliness. In my near-death experience, I experienced angels, spirit guides, loved ones, and beyond. And it allowed me to just remember how big of an illusion it was that I just saw myself as this body, as this name, as this gender, everything. We experience ourselves in this state of separation, but just because we think it does not mean that it is real. And so the ultimate true reality is that we are one, we are loved, we are connected, and we have an infinite array of love around us. And how we see ourselves is diametrically different than how the spirit realm sees us. When I had my near-death experience, the spirit realm didn't look down on me in judgment, but it looked up at me in infinite love, understanding, compassionate, and the beauty that it saw in itself. We are all sparks of divine, and we're able to remember that. We're able to let go a lot of the things that we've been taught, or a lot of the ideas that we may have been holding on to. And so Spirit constantly wants us to come back to this realization, to really remember this understanding. And if we could live from that place, we do not have to wait to go to heaven, but we are heaven right here, right now, by simply remembering and connecting to the pure essence of our own eternity.
Remember who you are. You're an eternal, loving, divine being. We're all connected to each other. Whatever you do to yourself or another affects everyone. Remember that you're a vibrational being as well. Whatever you're thinking and feeling, you're creating in your life. So I would tell you to think positive, loving thoughts. You'll create loving, positive things in your life and people in your life as well. Focus on solutions rather than the problems. Go through your life review now before it's too late and make a difference, and you'll create peace in your life and in the world as well. And you can change the world by just remembering who you are.